Hello and welcome to another episode of The Modern Nerd. I am Sir Slice,
I'm merchandise.
And I'm GJC.
and we are, as always, massive nerds. This week we are going to be doing an interesting one because we all have a lot of opinions, and we all tend to get heated on some of our specific opinions, and we're what is it, headstrong when it comes to a lot of these
I don't know what
things,
you're
and
talking
so
about.
all of us have stern opinions on certain
I feel
things,
very
and
strongly
and
that I
we've
don't know what you're talking about.
Hot take.
hot take. I don't care. We've glanced over a lot of these different things probably throughout the episodes. If you've watched, we've had some big bombs dropped. We're all like, what? And so we're gonna kind of dive into some and some new ones and kind of just see where this conversation goes. So if this seems a little less structured, well, you're welcome, because it is. Before we dive into that, as always, we love it. We love it when you all like and subscribe. Make sure to get that bell on so when you know when that YouTube is going up and you can see the latest videos from us on The Modern Nerd, so you can catch this episode and all the ones coming in the future. We love it. Give it a like and subscribe. Dan, thank you. George, thank you for doing all this every week and sometimes more than every week. And anyone that does watch us live or catches the YouTube, thank you. Thank you. We really truly appreciate it. We're not a big mega conglomerate. We're just a couple
Mega
of guys having
conglomerate.
fun and waiting for
What?
your opinions, because we want to hear them too. It's not just our opinions. So, um, we got some cool stuff coming up in the future, and we're gonna have a cool one today. So, today's first hot take: Dan hates soup. That is the hot take. Dan doesn't like it. It's it's he has it. No, I'm kidding.
Think Tim is a terrible reporter.
This just in. Um we all kind of came up with some. I'm super curious for Dan's. I really want Dan to go first on this one because
This is strange, but okay.
he's been saying stuff and I want to know.
Okay. Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, I don't even know if I want to lead with mine, dude.
Okay, well then
I don't want
somebody
to set
else.
the tone. I'm going to set the tone all negatively. My hot take is that soup should be served after dinner. I'm not even joking. I really strongly feel that soup should be served after dinner.
Soup should be served after dinner.
Soup should be served after dinner, money penny.
I
Uh,
I
All right,
guess.
here's a hot take that I don't think I would have to dive into, and I kind of mentioned it before. Batman is only as good as his villains. As in, if his villains weren't so good, I don't think we'd be like all up on Batman like we are.
Hmm. Hmm. That's interesting. So the dark brooding billionaire with, well, I mean, think of it like Iron Man. If he's not in a group, like his solo villains are not super great. I guess that's not a great argument because
It's not because
traditionally in the
Iron Man
comics,
is more interesting to me.
well, but like traditionally in the comic books, Iron Man was not a leading man. He was like a B level character.
Well, technically, neither really is Batman. If you want to break that down,
I mean,
he
like
is.
Batman. I mean, like Batman is like their top dog. He's
Oh,
their strongest seller
Sure,
and
sure.
everything.
But I mean,
But
without the Joker, without I mean, list off all of it: Victor Freeze, the Penguin, the Riddler. I don't think Batman would be what we know him to be today. I'm not saying he's not interesting, but I think that without these amazing villains, he would just be another something, just another dude, just another comic being sold, on the same kind of like mid card, if you will.
so I guess the question is, do you? It's I guess this depends on where you look at your Batman from. Are we looking at like
Sure.
the TV shows, the cartoons, the movies, the comic books? Like in the movies, Batman. In the movies, the villains are very much a response to Batman, which has been like his biggest dichotomy. Is like it's a call and response. would there be these villains if there wasn't a Batman, in the first place,
Right.
and all that. So, yes, he has the best villains if you really ask anyone, but they're like symbiotic. If Batman didn't have, like, I think he created those villains. So for me, it's hard to say, can is he great without the villains? It's hard to look at him without them. So it's
I will
you're
say,
probably right.
that the times when Batman is at his most interesting is when he's, or not most interesting. If you remove the villains, the time that he's most interesting is when he's having conversations with Alfred. Those are
Sure.
almost always very, because it's hard. How do you make a comic about a guy who doesn't like to talk and likes to brood? That's inherently a challenging thing to make. And then you have Alfred, and you actually start to hear his philosophy and bounce off of Alfred. And Alfred always has an interesting take. I have liked almost every iteration of Alfred, by the way, that has ever been portrayed in every manner. I think, I don't know,
He has his
and
own
that's
show now, right?
Did you watch Pennyworth?
I didn't watch Pennyworth.
I didn't either.
But that is interesting that I almost in some ways think Alfred is more interesting. Just in the way that I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the accent.
You like him Gotham, right?
I didn't see Gotham. Sorry,
You're
George.
watching him
I
Gotham?
liked
Yeah.
I saw the first season of Gotham, and I liked Alfred in there. You get a lot of different Alfreds all over the place,
They've all
and
been pretty good. I
like you
feel
get like
strongly about that.
you get the original, 89 Alfred from the movies, who was with, all the way through Schumer's run and everything. And he's a much more quiet, kind of like soft spoken, but like to the point kind of Alfred, wise wisdom. When then you get like, you know, Jeremy Irons, who is like, basically like
He did a lot of
like
work for Batman.
yeah, he's like a
He did
washed
a
up
lot of legwork.
engineer that like is trying to like deal with this drunken playboy for Ben
Yeah.
Affleck. Like it's a very different,
Yeah.
dynamic. And you're right. So I guess Dan's hot take is Batman is an ensemble cast.
That's a good
Okay.
way of putting it.
Yeah.
That's
I
a good way
mean,
of
I
putting it.
I,
I'm
I would
starting slow.
agree.
I don't want to
That's
start
not
with my
super
craziest
spicy.
ones. Yeah,
No,
I would say it's
I want to
slightly
start. I want a
spiced,
slow
but
burn because
yeah, it's
my
not
other ones
a,
I feel like are.
we're
it's
gonna
not
go with a
particularly
mild
spicy.
take on that one. Dan's
Yeah.
Yeah,
mild take.
that's fine. I don't feel it doesn't feel right to jump right into my hottest
That's
takes.
okay.
I'm
The
not
soup
there
one I
yet.
thought was interesting.
I'll give you my mild take.
Okay.
And I think I said it. I don't know if it was on. I know it was on stream, but I don't know if it was part of the one that made it up to the YouTube. I'm sticking with it. It's what made me think of this. Is the 2006 Pirates of the Caribbean. Um, um, what is it? The
Oh,
second one. The second one.
um,
D- I
Dead Man's
just
Chest.
watched these. Dead Man's Chest. Davy Jones in that movie is the pinnacle of CGI. Like, I watched this like maybe 2 weeks ago at most, maybe even a week, and it looks real. Like, it looks like a fucking squid person head thing, and the way the tentacles move and the way they got the face capture for Bill Nye, and like it it's what is that, like 15 years, I think, at this point, right? 10 years between 12, 16 years since that movie came out. And it looks great. I mean, it holds up to me as much as like the original Jurassic Park does, because that movie holds up because it's all, practical effects, and that's why they last through time. But it just, you could argue Avatar, was a great looking movie, but like everyone still kind of looked all shiny and everything, whereas like this looked like he looked wet, he looked disheveled, he looked torn, and I think it's the movie industry can learn from that moment, and there's a lot yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
mean, there
but
is
still,
a shortage of VFX artists these days. Everything's getting rushed out, and artists are quitting because of the terrible, like, the job, what the job demands for them, and all these Disney things that are being, plunged out of there.
Yep.
So it's they don't have the time like they used to.
Yeah, it's really bad
I
burnout.
imagine they had a lot of
It
time
is.
to
If
really
you
get
watch,
dedicated.
like, for a big film, if you I don't know if anyone's ever had an opportunity to watch like the behind the scenes of Frozen and Frozen 2 when they did on Disney Plus.
I
There's like a
will.
making of. There's several episodes of it, and a lot of it follows the animators. There's people who've worked a whole year for for less than 3 to like 10 seconds worth of film of
Yeah.
a scene that may not even make it to the movie.
That's
Can you
crazy.
believe that?
It's
If you
nuts.
worked like anywhere from 6 months to a year on maybe 3 seconds worth of a shot to animate perfectly, and there's still like a 50-50 chance it makes it or doesn't make it to the movie by the end of it. And you're like,
Yeah.
Great.
I mean, Disney is notorious for that shit. Weirdly, it was also a Disney, movie that I'm talking about. And I was gonna be like, even look at like the Marvel movies, but again, Disney, and especially now with like She-Hulk and like that whole controversy behind the animation and stuff. But I mean, like, there's been a ton of movies that have come out that had the what else came out in 2006 was The Fall. Does anybody remember that movie by Tarsem? It's a beautiful movie. Lots of practical effects, but there's some good special effects in there too. Like, 2006 was like a great
can I
year for.
play off of that kind of idea where you said that
Please.
Pirates of the Caribbean was great effects? Another movie that I kind of strangely think stood up to the test of time was the first Transformers.
Special
The effects for that.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
special effects of
I
that
would
looked
agree.
really nice. Like, Optimus
They
was
did.
like pretty freaking believable. And like looking back, because my nephew had never seen it because it's pretty violent, and now he's like old enough and he really loves Transformers. And I was like, I can't believe this kid hasn't seen Transformers before. He's 6 years old, and I was like, all right, let's watch it. Like, he just turned 7, I think, and I was like, all right, let's watch it. And like,
Hell
I was
yeah.
like, dang, this movie kind of like stands up as far as like effects go. Like, he's like, to him, like the Transformers are pretty like realistic looking, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, they look actually kind of good. Like,
Dude,
That's what made that
scene-
movie successful.
right.
that highway scene to this day is one of the greatest scenes.
That movie's
scene?
still kind of good.
The scene in the highway, in the
Oh.
first Transformers,
Which is-
so good.
Yeah.
What's interesting is he remade that from like one of his earlier movies. That was he used that exact same shot in, I want to say, one of the Bad Boys movies, and then just took it and animated in the Transformers into that scene.
Really?
Yeah, in the original, it was a giant axle for a an 18-wheeler that got sent flying off. They were towing it, and it got sent off flying off the back of a truck and landed on a car. And then you cut to the Transformers one, and it's Megatron, I want to say, who gets sent flying off and then landing on the exact same car. So he
kinda
recycled his
crazy.
own footage, very Disney-like, but the way he melded it together, or whoever melded it together, was brilliant, because like it didn't look like someone just like shittily
would-
dropped
yeah.
a transformer on there. I was
I
like,
would
oh, that
never have known that.
Dude,
Yeah.
I really
Like,
enjoy
that's
it, and like the humor. It was kind of it's funny because in the movie there's like he talks about like masturbation. So I was like, how do I explain this to like a kid? But I think it went way over his head, and he had no idea what was going on.
When?
oh, in the beginning when like the mom busts in and he's
Yeah,
all
the mom
sweaty
busts
and
in
everything
on
like
him.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
The parts of the movie that don't need to exist are the parts you have to explain to
They're
a
pretty
child,
freaking
because they're
cringe.
just
But other than that, like the movies, I
sexist
really still
writing.
enjoyed, and like, and that is what one of the movies I think launched what became like the huge cult following that was like all these people who are fans of Megan Fox. I think. I mean, it really
oh well, yeah,
made her
I mean-
the it girl for what it for
yeah,
what
but
she
he was
became.
an
So
exploitive fucking asshole about it. All right, George, what's one of your hot takes?
that was it. I just said it. My
No,
rule is Transformers.
that was a spin-off. What's
Oh.
one of your other ones that you?
I don't
came in
have
with?
any other hot takes
You
unless you
do.
want me to go really
Come on.
hot take.
Hit
Am I
me.
just going to talk about what I want to, what Dan wants to say?
Yes.
Do we want to
I
do
was
it now?
saying
Or you
that
want to come back
I
to
think
it?
that Batman Returns is the best Batman.
Batman Returns from
I
1992 or one is the
I
best
feel
Batman.
I
feel
think
bad. I
it's
should have
arguable. You
watched
could say
that.
that, and also obviously, you could say Dark Knight. But the thing is like for
Knight was
me, I
good.
personally prefer Batman Returns. Dark Knight is, I mean, it's really good, and that's like there's these things that are. I was thinking about this today, and somebody was doing some hot takes. Shout out to one of my friends, Slicer. She was saying something about How I Met Your Mother is not really that good, but there's certain shows out there
I would
and
agree.
certain things out there that are so iconic, they're so beloved that if you dare attack it, you're like automatically in the wrong according to the internet, sometimes. And like when it comes to Batman, Dark Knight is so beloved, and I think a lot of it has, I mean, I hate to say a lot of it has to do with, like, not to dismiss anything because he's a big part of it, but a lot of it has to do with Heath Ledger and Joker goggles. That
90% of
that
it has to
movie
do with
is
Heath
like
Ledger.
him. It's so perfectly well done because of him, and like that's why it's quote unquote untouchable, because we'll never be able to get that ever again. There's so much that goes into it behind just how great that movie is. I hate to say it, but honestly, for me, like, Batman Returns, that's Batman. That's like Batman at his peak. That is what, when you ask me what I think of
Strong
Batman,
argument.
that's what I think of Batman.
I'm not saying it's a bad argument. It's just
No,
an
it's
argument I do agree
it's
with.
good. I mean, you've got powerhouse performances from Danny DeVito,
Danny fucking
who
DeVito.
just lived it for that moment. You've got Michelle
Believable as
Pfeiffer
fuck.
really just diving into this role.
Pfeiffer.
Christopher Walken,
Christopher freaking
as
Walken.
Max, whatever his name is, Max Powers. No, Max, whatever. And he was fantastic, and the legendary Michael Keaton reprising his role. Yeah, it's
and the Alfred in that is amazing too.
It's a good argument. It loses me a little bit with the story, though. It's a little
story
weird that,
is-
like, I'm gonna be mayor. I'm like, eventually, but like, build up the crime boss, like, But other than that, like, it's a damn fine movie, and I remember loving it as a kid. You're right. I don't know. Dark Knight.
I don't know, man. I support George in this, and I think it's definitely a valid argument. I can't help but wonder if there's a little bit of nostalgia.
Of
Oh,
course.
sure.
I mean, it's like what you grew up with, right? Like, so, like,
I know, but I
when
think
I grew
that's
up, like, and I
not
thought of Batman, like, that's what I feel like Batman Returns is so good.
to me,
is,
that
like,
doesn't nostalgia doesn't count. I think what matters is the end product. But at the same time, you have to, like, the fact that movie came out in the 90s, early 90s, versus the fact that the the Dark Knight came out way later when technology had advanced and a lot of other things had advanced.
Yeah.
You gotta take that into account as well, and those are both, to remove both, like, the time period and the nostalgia from this argument is next to impossible, but from an objective standpoint, it does need to be removed so that you can just focus on what's there,
Like,
the performance.
it really
the
is,
story.
like, I mean, it's a Tim Burton masterpiece. There's no question about it. It, like, the whole, obviously, the first two films are
Yeah.
just, it's him. It's like,
It does
it's
its
his
thing.
take on what he thinks Batman should be, right? And for some reason, I feel like it set the tone, obviously, because it launched a franchise for that generation, right? And, like,
Saved superhero movies
right.
altogether.
I think there was something interesting about the timing of it and him and the way that he did that film,
First
and it just made it iconic. And yeah, like, there's a lot behind it, and you want to take that all away, and you want to try to judge it just for, like, the film itself. For both, and maybe all Batman films, it's very hard to take each one of them out of its context and, like, compare them apples to apples, right?
It's hard.
Here's my hot take on that movie: making Danny DeVito the Penguin a penguin almost ruins it for me.
Oh no, that's like one of my favorite parts.
I appreciate
that he was like
he
was like, born like that with the hands and everything. Yeah.
I appreciate the uniqueness of it, but it removes me from the movie. For me, it takes away from what it just doesn't feel like. I do like that Tim Burton did it up. I like that he just went all in with this, but for me personally, it just is like, I don't know. It takes away.
That was like one of my earliest introductions to Penguin. So, like,
Yeah.
I read comics growing up. I never read Batman growing up. I was Batman. I watched the TV show and everything, and the Penguin was the same stature and everything. He just had different, he had regular fingers and not as spiky teeth. But the teeth come back at some point, and he looks more like that in some of the other cartoons and everything. So,
I don't know.
I don't know. And also, if you
he never again, to my recollection, has those flipper fin creepy hands.
I understand also, like, Tim Burton Batman, and maybe because of the timing and the age it was, there was a slight bit of outrageousness to it, right? In the sense of, like, border on comical when you look at it in retrospect. Do you know what I'm saying? Where it's like, it's a little bit goofy.
I would say that.
There are times where you find a little bit goofy.
Are goofy.
A little bit goofy, especially, and then compared to obviously Dark Knight and all of them are all very serious tone. There's barely any room for humor in any of those.
Well,
like, do you know what I'm saying?
What you get is you get a comic book, whereas with Dark Knight you get a movie. They're very different. One is more like very much so comic book, unrealistic, super-ish, got some powery type things.
So do you feel like Dark Knight is very true to the Batman comics?
No.
But yet it's the better Batman movie and it's the best Batman movie?
I mean, it's true enough. Let me say that. It's true enough because there've been 17,000 different versions of Batman, but like it's as far as like the overall tone and feel and story goes, yeah, it's actually pretty true to like something that could happen that you could write.
I can definitively say, whether you say Batman is as good as Dark Knight, that's like hard to say, but I can definitively say it is a solid number 2 Batman Returns. At least, at the very least, it's a number 2.
Look,
better than Batman Begins, better than any of those other Batman, better than Robert Pattinson Batman, better.
Look, we are so fortunate enough to live in a time where we can have this conversation and have legitimate points for almost every Batman movie, except for maybe Forever and Batman Returns.
And don't get me wrong, the first Batman, or the first Batman with Jack Nicholson is fucking iconic. I mean, it's like mirror. Like, there's so many things. Okay, and also when you talk to me about like lines that are iconic that stick out to me in the Batman franchise that rattle in my brain, there's so many good ones from there's just these, I don't know, there's just things that stick out to me that like are in my head when it comes to Batman Returns. I don't know.
I'm gonna tail end on this one with mine. I think Val Kilmer is the total package for Batman. Listen to me. Everyone has a good and a bad. Christian Bale is a great Bruce Wayne, but a terrible Batman. Michael Keaton is not a great Bruce Wayne, but he's a great Batman. Robert Pattinson is a weird emo kid and Batman. Val Kilmer is a good Bruce and a pretty good, if you look at just the scenes where he's Batman, they're up there. As far as well-rounded goes, he's the most well-rounded. I'm going to be honest with you.
Batman Forever did not star Val Kilmer. Okay, Batman Forever starred everybody else but Val Kilmer. He was a supporting actor in that film.
He's the Tom Holland of Batmans.
What?
Toby?
You mean like what does that even mean?
I know the movies. I'm saying the performance, because look, you've got look, if we go into the Tom Holland stuff, what was it? The best Peter Parker was Tobey Maguire. The best Spider-Man is Andrew Garfield. The best of both worlds is Tom Holland. He's the middle ground between the two. You take the two of them, you mix their talents, you get Tom Holland's Spider-Man. It's not going to be the absolute best. They're some of my favorite movies. I think as far as just the character Batman, not the movie, but the character of Batman, Val Kilmer is the middle ground of every Batman we got and is going to sit in the most well-rounded Batman that you get. I'm not saying he's my favorite. I'm saying he's the most well-rounded of all of them.
I can't, dude. I can't.
You wanted it? You got it. Right here first, folks. Val Kilmer.
It's like, can I persuade to take a sandwich with you, sir? I'll get drive-through.
Look, I'm not saying that's not his fault, man. You can't blame the writing on Val Kilmer. The
Anyone could have
performance, he did
played
the
that.
best.
Anyone could have played that part.
So basically, what Tim's saying is, if you lower the bar enough on both sides, he is balanced enough. That dude was doe-eyed the entire movie. I watched that movie recently. He was basically blank staring off into the distance.
He was a ghost
in both Batman and
he was a
Bruce
mannequin.
Wayne.
He's troubled. Okay,
What you're saying
he's troubled.
What you're saying is that if you lower the bar enough to both sides, that it's a balanced version. So if like Christian Bale had just done a worse job as fucking Bruce Wayne, that he would have been a more balanced.
Two C pluses do not equal an A, dude. Like, I'm sorry.
I'm saying, look, if you look at like a character selection and the abilities of what they all have, you know, like strength, power, and stamina, and all that stuff, you know,
they're all the same, right?
His is all right down the middle.
They're low, but they're all right.
Whatever.
They're all right down the middle.
I
and
don't
everyone
understand
else
this
is
take, but
spread
okay.
top and bottom.
Fine. I like it.
Whatever. I don't really understand this take.
I like a good hot take. This is good.
Enjoy your take.
Hot takes are important.
All right, Dan, you're next. That's not even my hottest take.
That's all I have to say today.
Okay, here's the thing. My hottest take is almost directly tied into what we've been talking about, and I have to talk about it because I can't not bring it up after soup, dude. Salad should come after as well. No,
you should put the salad in the soup and eat it together.
I'm actually a little nervous. Okay.
Get ready to kill his cam.
Hit the dump button. My hot take is that Christopher Nolan is a very overrated director. Really overrated. Does not deserve the credit he gets. If you look now, granted, I've been over here. This is ironic. I've been on here pretty much arguing the case of the best Batman movie being The Dark Knight.
Would you say those are his best movies?
Okay, I didn't see Dunkirk, unfortunately, and I've heard that's very good. There's a little bit of an asterisk on this. Can I accept that? Beyond that, I don't. I guess I would say Dark Knight is his best, or maybe Inception. But if Heath Ledger was not in that movie, I would be agreeing with George about the best Batman movie.
Well, so I think you are agreeing with George. I think you're saying that's the best Joker movie.
But him in that movie elevates that movie to the number one position alone, is what I'm saying. What I am saying is Christopher Nolan, he's not that good. You look at all of his movies, and from my perspective, they let you down in one form or another. Let's talk about his greatest movie, Inception. That movie,
I wouldn't call that his greatest movie.
What would you call his greatest movie?
Memento.
Memento is okay. Oh, I forgot about Memento.
For me, personally, that's a personal.
Okay, you know what? I will agree in that. Memento is his best movie.
Inception would be his most commercially successful one.
Inception, okay. First of all, I want to start off by saying I don't think these movies that I'm going to talk about are bad movies by any means.
Yeah, I have something similar, so I want to hear your thing.
You look at like Interstellar or the Batman trilogy, or Inception, and I don't know, they're not that good. I saw the Interstellar ending coming from a mile away, like most people did, and when the climax hit, I'm just kind of like, this isn't. It made that movie largely forgettable to me. Inception, though really good initially and a great spectacle to watch, and influenced like movie history, but more importantly, it also influenced like the next decade of movie trailer history, and the blah, like we heard that forever. I appreciate the, you know, what me and George went and saw Doctor Strange 3 times in IMAX 3D. A very similar effect happening with the world bending and a very amazing visual effects. The story, that story is riddled with plot holes, and half the time you just kind of have to go, all right, I guess they're just going into his mind. We're not going to explain how this is happening. It's a
The
like you
funny
have
thing is they do try and explain it, but it's just you're just like this doesn't what like
it's you have to suspend your disbelief for Inception over and over and over and over again. And I get that that's kind of a thing that we have to do these days and as an audience. But he kind of sets the bar at a point where you shouldn't have to suspend your disbelief, and then you do many times over again. And that's just Inception. The Batman trilogy. Let's talk about like what is arguably the best Batman trilogy out there.
the
It
only Batman trilogy out there.
oh, touche.
I mean, I guess you
Um,
technically can count the first four, but like it no.
right. I guess that's. I don't. I guess what I'm trying is like highly regarded as some of the best Batman movies made in a row. I guess. I just. I unfortunately don't have as in depth of analysis in this, other than I just don't feel they're as good as people give them credit for. I still think they're some of the best like Batman movies and comic book movies for sure. Like time and effort went into this, but there are flaws holding each of those movies back heavily. Uh, that I it's it's almost like he's his own worst enemy. Like he sets the bar at a certain like higher than most other movies or franchises. And I love that, but it's like he doesn't always uphold to that end. He does it only parts of the movie. And if you're going to do that, you need to kind of like keep up the consistency. There's consistent parts and like plot holes and
He's
like weak acting or weak
I will
storytelling.
say he's consistently inconsistent.
Yes, that is yes.
You're not wrong. If you take like Batman Begins, I think was a great origin. I think one of the better comic book
First two
origin
acts
movies.
very good. The
Yeah,
third
yeah,
act,
yeah. If
arguably
you
one of the worst acts in the trilogy.
if you
Like,
take like if you take it's weird because what we remember and pick from those movies makes it a great trilogy because you remember the really good parts. If you pick out the good parts, those three tell a great story. But you're
yeah,
right, those little bits in between like the great parts are just they're it's very inconsistent. They're not. I love them. I think Dark Knight Rises was actually for me. I think it was better than what people perceived. I mean, yes, it's again as you said with many flaws,
I
but
actually, and as a whole, in many ways, Dark Knight Rises had the potential to probably to be the best in many ways.
except they told the
And
same movie twice within the same movie.
I didn't mind that. You had two major flaws to me, in Anne Hathaway's Catwoman not pulling it off, and
Mm.
Bane doing this weird Swedish Sean Connery voice the whole movie. Like, like that. Like every moment with Bane in that movie should have landed heavily and hard, and it's like you were born in the dark. I was born by it. I'm like, can someone turn off the Saturday morning cartoons? Like, this someone fucked with the audio. Is this a practical joke? Like, I don't know. I understand it's a hard thing to do to have a man's muffled voice and still be badass and still be here clearly, but that was not the choice to go with, and it plagued the movie. Because I can tell from a standpoint like that should have been awesome. Like everything about that character, I felt that the weight of it and the backstory and his presence in the scenes. But what I was hearing was it was like a practical joke almost, and it broke my heart a little. And there's things like that in all of his movies that something's really good, and then all of a sudden you're just like, what is it's like a fucking it's like a if Christopher Nolan's movies were roller coasters, we would all be vomiting because it is way too many quality ups and downs over and over again, and everyone
You know
remembers
what?
the good shit.
You know what's interesting is I've got his list of movies in front of me, and what he's really good at, other than Bane, what he's really, really good at, I think, and why
Tom
people
Hardy
love him.
Tom Hardy right now?
What?
Are you talking about Tom Hardy, or are you talking
No,
about
Nolan, Christopher Nolan.
Nolan?
What Christopher Nolan, I think, is good at, and what makes him um, renowned is he's really good at getting amazing performances out of his actors. Like every movie that I'm looking at has some amazing performances. I mean, Batman Begins maybe is your weakest one because like who stands out in that movie?
Katie Holmes.
Sure, right? That was terrible.
I mean,
But like
Michael Caine.
Dark Knight, you get like one of the best performances in a comic book movie ever.
That
Memento
was prime
is I mean,
couch jumping time, dude.
you've
For
got
Katie Holmes.
what's his name? Guy Pearce's greatest performance, in my opinion, quite possibly in Memento. And then you've got The Prestige, which I think might be close to one of his better movies as well.
You know,
Solid all around. That's probably his best all arounder, where it's like,
that movie is consistent.
yes,
love The
it is.
Prestige.
But like, you know, Inception had some of the best acting in the last 12 years. I mean, it did. I mean, you had DiCaprio was great. Marion Cotillard can do no wrong, in my opinion.
With
They all played off of each other.
But when the script is just like expecting you to understand what these characters have gone through without giving context,
Sure.
it carries no weight.
I'm just saying, I mean, Interstellar, you know, McConaughey was like, I mean,
McConaughey
that was phenomenal. Dunkirk is a whole different beast. You'd have to see it. Tenet had a really good performances. It made no sense
No sense.
whatsoever. And it was a
I-
visually spectacular
I want to
movie.
say that can I say this is that the way I see it is that Christopher Nolan is held at a somewhat high regard as far as coming as a movie maker, in the sense of like he's seen slightly more artistic and a little bit more prestigious, no pun intended, of a
Hey.
movie maker than say like a Jerry Bruckheimer.
Well,
But
I love Bruckheimer fans.
I
but
agree.
but maybe they're a little bit closer than some would say.
Oh, I would agree
Like
with that
that
completely.
Nolan is trading on name alone
He's-
more than actual
he's
product. Right.
He's like Trader Joe's, you know, he's pretending to be better than everyone else, but he's
Right.
still not that great.
But he's right, that's oh my god, that's exactly what it is.
Damn, good shit.
Though I don't know much about Trader Joe's in that sense.
I do
but
want to say though, you said who's the standout of the first Batman, and Michael Caine to me.
Well, sure, but
that's
I mean,
not fair. Good. He's a standout in all three, though.
I know, and I think that he is another amazing Alfred performance that is very vital to the Batman dynamic.
Morgan
And
Freeman's
in
freaking
that
amazing
sense-
too.
In that sense, I mean, Morgan Freeman was Q in that movie, and he was just like, "Here, look at these things. Ah, press this button, it does this. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Try this out." Like,
Mr. Wayne?
whatever.
Mr.
I
Wayne?
mean, of course you're like, he's the
And-
likable guy, and he did what he needed to do, and that's fine. But Michael Caine's like monologues are
Oh, yeah.
honestly some of my favorite in cinema history.
I mean, in all of
he-
those movies.
They still echo out throughout my brain, and they have philosophy that can literally be applied to everyday life. And I understand that Christopher Nolan wrote that with his brother, and I
Well,
appreciate.
his brother does most of the writing.
Oh, okay. Well,
I mean, like he writes it, but like a lot of it is
you know,
like his
and then
his
here we
brother.
go. Same thing I've been talking to you guys for the better part of a decade. 2 scenes later, that's not good.
That's
Yeah.
not good.
It's not good.
He
Is
he
that a
really
bazooka?
he's like
Is that a bazooka? No, man, it's a fucking RPG. Call it a rocket launcher if you want. Bazooka is
he's
fucking
he's like an artisan Michael Bay. You know,
pretty harsh. That's actually much harsher than I would put it. But yeah, I don't.
Michael Bay in
think-
the 90s was great. And then
Oh,
it was terrible.
That's true, isn't it? Yeah, The Rock.
Rock, Bad Boys, Con Air. No, that's not Michael Bay. That's Bruckheimer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, he had some good movies. Anyway, here's
That's my hottest take.
that's
So-
a good hot take. I like that. I like
Yeah.
that. And it's hard to argue too because like we enjoy a lot of these movies. I'm gonna do one which
I'm
was
not saying he's not a good director. I'm not saying I don't enjoy his movies. I just think he is the Trader Joe's of directors.
okay. I am going to go after one of the most acclaimed directors in cinema history.
Oh, another director. Fascinating.
Martin Scorsese is overrated. Now, this is really hard to argue because I was like, I went and looked at a lot of these movies, and there's some of my favorite movies. Now, here's the thing, though:
There's a lot of bad
a
ones
lot
too.
of his movies are
I need a minute.
exactly the same. He has been telling mafia movies for 40 fucking years. And like when The Irishman came out, I was like, are we really going to just give him another fucking praise for doing Goodfellas again? Like, are you out of your fucking minds? Like, why does he get to shit on everyone else, but if you shit on Scorsese, you're a pariah? Like, I don't understand. So he also is the king of masculine toxicity. Every single one of his main characters is a giant steaming pile of dog shit. They're all horrible, machismo, terrible people that if were alive and real today would be the main target of every Me Too fucking movement out there. They're abusers and they are horrible people. He writes the most toxic people. And I don't understand why everyone's like, this is the greatest man ever. Look, he's done a lot for cinema. He really, really, really has. And I can't take any of that away. Whatever he does where he restores old films and keeps them collected and everything, that's amazing. And I love that he's doing that. And like, I look at Taxi Driver, I think was a great movie. Again, toxic male, another like that guy is not someone that we should be cheering for. He's a murderer and a creep. Casino. All these people are mobsters and women abusers and like all that. Same thing with Goodfellas. Um,
I would say both Aviator and Shutter Island did not involve any of what you're talking about.
I would agree. I mean, Aviator. He's what's his name is not really a great person.
Howard
Don't get
Hughes.
me wrong. Shutter Island, yes, I think Shutter Island's maybe a standout. I really love that movie. I mean, Wolf of Wall Street, that's the epitome of like
I I
everybody in that movie
disagree.
is.
He has done. You're not wrong about most of his movies.
There's a handful of outliers, Hugo, and like some of these other
I
ones,
mean,
but
there's
like
other ones. Gangs of New York. I mean, that is mafia-esque, but that's not the same movie as like
no, but they're
as
not
like a Goodfellas or there's
other than
enough
the revenge plot.
variety
Like
here. I think there's enough if you include Shutter Island and The Aviator and uh and God, whatever and Gangs of New York. I
I'm
think
just
and
saying,
Hugo and I think there's enough. You're not wrong about the majority of his
yeah,
movies.
yeah.
I would agree with that.
Even if
There
they're not the
is,
same, there's a lot of just
and I will say, The Irishman is. Uh, it was
I
okay.
I refuse to watch it. It's 3.5 fucking hours long. Fuck
I don't think
you,
you
bro.
yeah, I don't think you need to watch it. It really is it's interesting, but the amount of praise he got for that movie,
Yeah,
you are 100% on the nose. Like, are we really gonna praise this guy for making this movie the umpteenth time?
it
Because
it
that is
it's his
basically
biggest movies put together. It's Goodfellas,
yeah.
it's Casino, I mean it's his main Taxi Driver, kind of, not really, I guess. I mean, look, he's got a lot. He's got King of Comedy. He's a Raging Bull. Don't get me wrong. He's got some outliers to this male toxicity type shit. I mean, he
Hmm,
weirdly he directed Michael Jackson's Bad video. Did you know that? I didn't know that.
awesome.
Um, which some people would say, hey, there's another problem right there.
Oh,
Um,
that video.
but he's overrated to me. I usually go after like Sean Penn and like all these people who I think are also overrated. Talented. Everybody I'm talking about is talented, and like, again, Gangs of New York I will watch any day of the week and really enjoy the movie. But there's just a lot of stuff that's all they all feel like Scorsese movies, and other than like Hugo, and maybe Gangs of New York, like they all still feel kind of the same. You know what I mean? To me,
Shutter Island feels the same to you? Like
what does?
Shutter Island? Like that's not on that list.
Well, it's like a pseudo horror movie. I liked that movie though. I did. It's hard. It's hard to say, but I really do stand by it. Like I do think he's a little overrated. He's not bad. He's not. He is a great director. I just think he's not as he shouldn't be as acclaimed as everyone says he is. You know, like when he took a stab at like Marvel movies, it was like the nail in coffin. Like fuck you, buddy. Like come
That's
on,
what
man.
it is.
Like,
Okay, let's take
no,
this.
no, no. I felt this before.
Slice
that
didn't
I,
want
I,
to. Slice didn't
I,
want to do this hot take until he took a shot at Marvel, and then he was like, "That's
Irishman. Irishman.
That's it.
Was kind of
That's
right there.
it."
You know, there's
Yeah,
just
there
a
is
lot.
something to be said. A hypocrite, and I understand where Slice is going. There's something hypocritical of him to criticize "quote unquote" superhero movies when he is fucking in the genre of his own style. He's somebody who essentially created a genre of his own, kind of, is one of the cornerstones of his own like semi-mafia crime genre of films, right? So
Yeah.
Mean Streets.
like
So many.
it's a bit, you know, he's a bit on his high horse, or it's a bit, you know, what's the term for it? Sweet.
You're right there. High Horse is a good one.
Yeah, he's a bit on his high horse to say that, oh, like this certain genre of films is destroying cinema, right? It's like, well, dude,
Yeah.
you've been stuck in the same genre of film your whole entire life, so
The
like,
Irishman is destroying cinema. Like you didn't even release it in theaters, you asshole. You just went straight to Netflix, and you're gonna complain about like superhero movies? Like,
yeah,
oh,
like
come on.
to I mean, you know my take when it comes to content, whether it's content from social media all the way up to big screen studios. Like, I just don't think anyone has a right to criticize anyone else's like grind in that sense. We all need to make money like it or not, he may consider himself a filmmaker, but like it or not, in the broad scheme of things, he's a content creator just like everyone else. We all need to, as content creators, we all need to hustle and make money one way or another. Therefore, there's no right that one person no one has the right as a content creator to shame somebody else as a content creator for how they make money in this generation of content consumption. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't care if it's you're you know, doing some stuff from OnlyFans to all the way down to like, you know, making movies that are not even like that are direct to Netflix to, you know, Oscar winning things. Like, everyone needs to make money, and to be upset about a whole genre of film that is making money and being successful and doing something that you're unable to do just sounds like
jealous.
sour grapes, dude. Yeah, it just sounds like sour grapes.
Yeah,
that you're
totally.
upset that people don't want to watch your movies anymore. That like
Kevin
the
Feige
generation
did
has
something
moved
he
on.
never
That
could.
your movie has the way that you conceptualize movies and cinema has no place anymore, and you're upset about that. How about you become a little bit more creative and get something that can like get people to watch you? When people don't consume your content, unfortunately, you have no one else to blame but yourself.
I'm glad
And
I got
that's
George
something
riled
that a
up.
lot of people and nowadays don't understand. I think it's very quick for people who create content to go out there and try to blame it on somebody else. Oh, so and so has more views on their content or watching more to be successful because they're just shaking their ass and they're a titty streamer, or this person's doing that and blah, blah, blah. It's so easy to like to blame your lack of success on what other people in the medium and other people in the industry are doing by ruining quote unquote your conception of what the way the art and the content should be, right? If you're unable to be successful, you have no one to blame but yourself. The first person you should blame is yourself. If your films are commercially unsuccessful and you're not able to survive with the growing times, that is your own fault.
Yeah, bruh.
I
I
know.
mean,
That's my
well,
hot take.
let's be honest. Scorsese was still pretty successful, but still was dragging other
Look, he's
movies.
successful by the Academy standards, and nobody gives a fuck
No
about
one
the
gives a
Academy
fuck.
Awards
Right.
anymore. You
That
know what I
shit
mean?
don't make
Like,
money.
all of that is each other it's just a bunch
It's
of
a
them
circle
jerking
jerk.
each other off.
Yeah, it's a circle jerk.
And like, oh, this guy from my own circle of peers, they don't give a shit about what the popular opinion is. They care about what each other's prestigious opinion is. I remember, both of you can remember coming over to my house and watching all of these movies before the Oscars, and like literally all of them, and we would, get really into it. And then now, when do you guys even watch the Oscars or the Globes
Nope.
or Emmys or literally any of these things? No, nobody fucking cares anymore. Like,
can't
it's
be-
become irrelevant, and
You can't
and
be
they
upset
need another
about the
medium
changing
to judge each other.
Right. You can't
know
be
what I mean?
upset about the way the changing times. Like, unfortunately, when you do that, you sound like you're just unwilling. You're stagnant. Right? Do you know what
He's
I'm
an
saying?
old man. He
Yeah.
sounds like an angry old
Yeah,
white
you
dude.
just sound like you're like a malcontent, and that you're upset that people are like that times are changing. There's no other,
Okay.
like
All right.
Yeah.
Dan, do you have any more hot takes?
We don't have to talk about this one as much, but it's it's not that much of a hot take. I just
An opinion.
I just very
dessert with
strongly
soup, right? This is
feel-
the dessert with soup hot take.
Put a scoop of ice cream
Shouldn't have
in
said
my
You
chicken
eat-
noodle, please.
You eat your dessert and your soup at the end of the meal. Wait, you
Okay.
eat your soup,
Blend it together.
then you eat
put a straw in it.
your dessert at the same time.
So we eat what we want to eat at restaurants and any order we choose. How you like them apples?
My ears did not like those apples.
Yeah, you.
Okay. I mean, it's not really a hot take. I very strongly feel that more so with movies than with shows, but still with shows, that a story is only as good as its ending. There are countless movies and shows that are very highly regarded that have weak endings, and shows get a pass. Especially if it's not a
Unless they're
especially if
Game
the
of
shows are
Thrones.
systematic.
I think shows are the
Shows get a pass unless they're Game of Thrones.
shows do not get a pass. Period.
I think shows that are episodic and not necessarily a consistently long story get a pass. That's what I think.
Sitcoms get a pass.
Sitcoms especially.
Sure,
Sitcoms
sure,
I think
sure.
get a pass. But
I'll
but
get that.
ones that but even like I think about one of my all-time favorite endings to a story, and that was The Good Place. I think The Good Place has
Fucking cried.
dude. I
Cried.
think I might go as far to say The Good Place has my favorite ending in a television show of all time. And I say that recognizing that the show as a whole wasn't that amazing, but it ended
amazing.
The show was good. But as in terms of like finding that perfect ending, that is as close as a story has come for me personally. And I mean, yeah, I'm gonna talk about Game of Thrones some more. Fucking sorry.
We know your opinions. Go to a different topic, different example.
No, I mean that's a prime example. Like that. Think of all we had invested in so much, and honestly, I can only speak for myself, but I feel like I speak for a large portion of the audience, and that season 7 didn't blow me away like previous seasons had, but it still was good. That's all I would have been. I mean, sure. I'm not gonna be honest. I'm honest. If it was the last season was still just as good as 7, I'd find things to complain about. But that's all we wanted.
We all do.
We just wanted some things to happen, and they couldn't even get us the basic versions of those. Like we couldn't have Jon Snow killing the Night King. We couldn't find out who the Night King was at all. Period. I'm not going to get into it, but we were left unsatisfied, and when you are left unsatisfied as an audience, more so with movies, especially, I feel empty leaving the movie theater. That is the lasting impression you have leaving a movie. The Coen brothers are the prime example. Their movies are so good and their endings are so shit
I
every
would
time.
100% disagree with you.
Tell me, which movie was good ending?
Fargo, Big Lebowski,
Big Lebowski
uh,
was really good.
the early one that they wrote. I mean, what's it called? Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou? I thought was there was nothing wrong with that ending. There's nothing wrong with any of their endings.
What about No Country for Old Men?
I think that was perfect.
The ending?
Yeah, just
Well,
they
we'll
just
agree.
stopped.
Exactly. That's
No,
not
but
an
like
ending.
that's the thing is like
You don't.
that's the beauty of that story is it was just sort of this is the tale and like you're left with that
It's like
fill in the
stopping
blank
mid
and figure the
sentence.
rest out.
That's not how stories should go. You need to have a not a. I saw another thing. Not an ending is not an ending. Like not ending the story and ending the story does not mean that's the end of the story.
So how
And I
did you
get.
feel about The Sopranos?
Uh,
One of
I.
the most iconic endings in the history of
I mean,
television.
I would say in the moment I definitely was upset. In hindsight, I respect it. I still don't like it. It's all right. Well, I'll get off Coen Brothers, but I just endings are very important to me, and maybe I could concede the fact that maybe I like I like closure. I don't the whole left you wanting more thing. I don't. It feels
Surprised you
cheap to
liked
me.
Inception as much as you did then.
I didn't like Inception that much.
You said you did like it.
I like the movie. I don't like the
Excuse
ending
me.
of Inception at all. I think that was
That's
stupid.
fair. I mean,
Um,
I love those kinds of endings.
I
I
don't.
think
I guess maybe it's more of a closure thing for me, and not necessarily like how it is from a cinematic storytelling standpoint. And I recognize that, but even so, I respected Inception's ending. Um,
I mean, it was. I like
I
those types of endings. That one was kind of annoying. I'm not. I'm right there with
I
you.
you know I there's just I like leaving the movie theater. I guess I'm thinking of like horror movies where we never find out what happened or why, and it's just the same. There's just I guess maybe that's more of a closure thing. I just like leaving the story feeling some closure, feeling like the story reached its end instead of
Did
stopping right
you
before or if otherwise it just feels cheap, like they couldn't think of a good idea, and so they
did
just
you
stop.
enjoy the ending to How I Met Your Mother? That was a terrible
um,
ending.
I again, so no, I didn't at the time, but I don't think it's a terrible ending. First of all,
It,
uh,
it's it's such a cop out. It's
I
like one of the biggest cop outs I've seen in
do
television,
you
other
do
than
that
Game
or
of
do you do the
Thrones.
same fucking thing we've seen over and over again and just have everybody like walks away happy? What didn't you like about it?
It like first of all, it ended. It went on for like at least one or two seasons too long because it was like, here's how I met your mother, and I'm gonna keep talking. It's like, bro, you already told me how you met your mother, and then it was like,
That's fair, I
Robin,
guess.
and it was just like, this is you're
Well, what about the
this is
ending? What was bad about the ending to you?
it was cheesy. It's like, oh, and then now he gets back together with Robin, and I'm like, that was the whole
I
point of
didn't
this show
I
was
didn't care
just to
for that,
tell me
but
that he loves Robin.
there was
No shit.
there was a beautiful sadness to that ending of that show because you
Disagree.
realize because dude, have you rewatched it? The moments where he has times where he's talking about the woman he loves, he's not just talking about the woman he loves, he's talking about the woman he's in love with and the woman that is dying. And there's a beautiful sadness to that throughout the show that you don't really pick up on in the first watch through. And there are many scenes where he's like, I wish I could walk into this door and meet you early, but I can't because this isn't how the story goes. I
It,
appreciate the unique factor in that. I think
it's
that's a
hard to it's
bad
hard
tale.
to like get behind him because Ted's a
Don't get me
terrible
wrong.
person.
100% agreed.
Yeah, so I'm like, why
100%
do I
agreed.
care about this guy and how he feels about this?
Because we can all identify him with him at some point. There's someone we've lost that we wish we could have said
Sure.
our goodbyes to or had more time with. And I think they missed the mark on Ted, unfortunately. But and I do feel like the whole Robin Barney him dynamic was not my favorite, but it wasn't it wasn't your typical ending, and it was a good show that deserved a unique ending, and I was okay with that.
I think shows it's very difficult to end a show well. Very few shows do
Very
a good
difficult.
job. Usually the reason why shows end, like, you have to think about why shows end, right? Usually is it a decision from above, or is it a decision from the makers of the show? Like, who's the one to make that call, you know? And I think a big reason why show endings are hard to get right is because of who makes that call, right? Like, is it the showrunner, like the people who create the show, making that call, and they made it as a decision as a cast and crew, and like there's a lot of input, and it just feels right, and they've always had this in their mind that this is where it's going to end? Or is it because somebody from higher up who's not involved into the show directly and making the show directly makes that call and says, we're only giving you one more season and you have to figure out how to end it? You know, I think that makes such a big difference, right? It's a palpable, noticeable difference when it's like the people who made the show and who are making the show on a regular basis have decided to end the show where it is, compared to like the decision, like we as a studio and as the channel or the, you know, have come to this agreement to end the show here. There's a big difference, right? Because sometimes it feels rushed, sometimes it feels forced, wherever it is. So I think there's an issue with that. On the flip side of that also, which is very interesting, is when shows become too successful and the people above want you to keep going when the people who make the show regularly do not have the same heart or feel in it anymore. And then the show gets canceled because it doesn't feel the same anymore, or it loses some kind of whatever made it special in the first place because it's dragged on too long. Case in point, a show called Lost.
That's a good example.
So,
I mean,
I think maybe with that preface, I think I'm a little bit more relaxed on how shows end because of that situation sometimes. Do you understand what I'm saying?
You're right. No, I completely agree. But on
the bar is very low
that
for you to do just okay on ending a season or series.
But still, movies have more control over that shit.
Movies, of course.
And bad endings for movies have
but then my second thing about the movies and my cop-out for that, not cop-out, my excuse is that, like, nowadays, because of the prevalency of franchising and sequels and stuff like that, sometimes a call to not end a franchise and give you a complete ending and to leave it open or somewhat open-ended ending is called from above as well.
You can do both. You can tell a story and end it and still have a tie-in for a possible sequel. You can still do that. Of course. That is possible.
The Matrix is a great example of that. The Matrix could have just ended it right then and there, but because it was such a good film, years later, they were like, maybe we can try to make a trilogy out of it.
Yeah.
So, I mean... But there's a lot of, you're right, there's a lot of movies who can definitely leave it open-ended like that. But movies, I think it's definitely easier to do. I agree with Dan that they have more control over that, and they should do it. I held that at a higher bar than like a series, because man, the series, sometimes it's not your call, and you're forced to end it in a way that it's like putting your dog down. Like you're forced to, like, you love this thing, you put your pour your, like, I mean, that's what it is. Like, you pour your life and every day into it for X amount of years, and it's your baby, and they're telling you the show doesn't have, that much longer to live, and you need to come to terms with it and end it, and it's obviously not going to feel the right way as opposed to if that, it ended on the terms that it was supposed to, the way that you've always imagined it. I mean, I don't know how. I don't know. It's
I mean,
I'm trying to think of shows that got a chance to end it on their terms, and some of them are the best shows out there. And then the ones that didn't get to end it on their own terms, whether it's because it wasn't their choice to end it too early, or whether it's because they were forced to go on longer than they probably really would have wanted to. Like, it's a huge difference, man. Quality of shows, especially the ones that are forced to go 2-3 seasons longer than they were supposed to, you could just tell. Like, Game of Thrones, unfortunately, is that one of those shows as well. You know, they were
I think
guilty
Game
of their own
Thrones is
success.
different. I think the plan was for right around that time. I think the creators, they gave up. I think that's what it was. I think it's different. I think it's like the opposite, whereas like everyone was still very much in it, except for the head creative people were very much not in it. So it was a little different.
Yeah.
I think. Oh man, I just had another example. Obviously, Good Place was like the perfect, like, well, it was just like, here's a beginning, a middle, and an end. We're going to tell you this story. Nice, neat little package, and like
Yeah.
that's, you know,
Very few shows have
as
that opportunity to end it on their own terms. I'm trying to think of more shows that are like that really got a chance.
But I think you're right, George. That like the show aspect should be kind of removed from my sentiment here because there's too many factors that go into the decision making process.
Sure.
That really can accumulate in what would be a very good ending.
Yeah.
There's just
look
too
at,
many,
like-
too many. Go ahead.
look at like The Office. That's a prime example of the shows that were forced to go on. Like the main actor was done and moved on, and they're like, no, we're gonna keep going. Granted, when they did finally end it 2 seasons later, that very last episode was actually kind of good because it was like, you know, like it was a wedding and it was just, it came back and it was like, you're like,
and that's the thing,
I'm crying again. But like,
like does one episode like count for like the whole season of like mediocrity? Like yeah, it's too many factors.
But
you know, I think of like Return of the King as just like one of the all-time greatest endings for me because I know I'm alone in that, but I will die on that hill. Like
which one? Which
endings.
ending?
Yeah, they were ending everyone's story. Like,
Yeah, I know.
You can't say that like it was different movies. Like it was all was all one movie.
You guys should watch Veep.
Like,
I'm curious what you guys would think of that ending.
Probably. I like her, and from what I've seen, that's good.
Can you think of like a movie that you really liked the ending?
Me?
Anyone?
That I really like the ending. I mean, one that would normally have I probably would not have liked a long time ago. Like Ex Machina had like an interesting ending. I don't know.
You know, and we've brought this up before. If you want to talk about how strong endings are, because this movie for you and me, Dan, stands out in our brains.
I know what you're gonna say.
It is not a great movie.
Can I say what it is?
But it has one of like the most shock endings. I mean, not most, but like for what the movie is, and then the way they ended it, the ending was the best fucking part of this movie. Go ahead. What do you say?
The Mist, right?
Yeah, 100%. Whereas like the meat and potatoes of this movie is mediocre. It makes me a little angry, especially for that like borderline cult, you know, religious woman. And then like you've got I guess the performances are fine. You know, they're not great, but then you just suddenly have like what? Like it's just, oh my god, the ending was insane. If you haven't seen it, maybe go watch it just for the ending. But all right, we've gone off on tangents and everything here now. We're wrapping up. We've had I really enjoyed this one because we really got to like pick each other's brains. And now you guys watching, you folks, ladies and gentlemen, can kind of see where our brains are and why we have our opinions of where we are on our normal shows. So, you know, when we talk about She-Hulk, when we talk about House of the Dragon, when we talk about whatever next Marvel movie it is, why we have these, where we line up in our columns, this is kind of like a little bit into our psyche. You know,
this is good. We more or less kind of like, at least at the very least, understood, if not pretty much agreed on all of our hot takes with each other.
Yeah, we can put up. They're all arguable hot takes, so that's good. Thank you guys for doing this. I know this was a weird one, and we had very little structure in this, so I really enjoyed it. Thank you everyone for watching. You know, as always, if you're not, obviously, if you're watching us right now live, you've already followed GJC327. If not, definitely check out his channel. He's got a lot of great content. His YouTube's got very informative stuff too. And I think was it this way? No, this way. I can't tell. This way. And then please like and follow the podcast on the Modern Nerd YouTube, and then I am Sir Slice 13 on Twitch. I'm putting out some more stuff there. I'm playing Subnautica and Fortnite, so hang out with me if you got some time. Hang out with George if you got some time. Follow Dan, I guess, if you want. You can.
We'll do a shout out.
You'll find him in George's channel more than you'll find him anywhere else. So go hang out there, chat with them. I would be there, but we're massive 6-hour time zone. As always, we've been the Modern Nerd, and thank you for watching.